Canadian unions held emergency talks last night as workers brace for these potential of this 25% tariff. The Canadian Labour Congress says if tariffs are imposed on March the 4th, Canada could lose 1.5 million jobs within a year. For more on what happened at last night's meeting, we are joined by Bea Bruce, president of the Canadian Labour Congress. Good to have you on this morning.
Thank you so much for having me.
So the CLC is calling for a, quote, comprehensive worker-first strategy to protect workers, obviously, from the effects of these potential tariffs. How did last night's meeting shape up?
We had a fantastic meeting last night. We are really trying to fight chaos with collaboration of all union leaders and along with our colleagues and friends in the United States.
The American Federation of Labor also joined the meeting, I understand. So what are you hearing from U.S. worker groups?
What we're hearing is that workers in the U.S. are so under attack at every single level that the issue of tariffs, while it's critically important, is one of many that they are trying to navigate. And so for us, tariffs, of course, is the #1 issue at this moment in time based on the job losses that you've just identified. And we are really needing to make sure that we are in a really good position to protect workers and to protect workplaces in the event of these tariffs actually taking place and the impact that we anticipate.
When you say in a good position, what does that mean?
That means having a strong social safety net. That means making sure that when workers are impacted, when their workplaces are impacted, that they have supports in place, whether that's working with the employer, whether that's working with making sure that we have a strong employment insurance system, whether that's introducing additional supports like we had throughout COVID, and finding ways to make sure that we lessen our reliance on our U.S. trading partner. And that means we need to actually look at things like investing in our infrastructure. We need to look at investing in rails and ports and roads so that we can get Canadian product not just to the U.S. but to our worldwide trading partners.
When you say the support's in place, where do you want that money to come from?
We need to find a way to find that money because workers and communities are at risk if we do not have those supports. So, we cannot just take people's paychecks away. We know that only 2 in 5 workers in Canada right now, when they apply for employment insurance, are eligible for EI. People are going to start losing their homes. People are not going to be able to make the rent, and they're not going to be able to afford their groceries. And that will have spillover effects on other jobs within the community. It will have devastating impacts in those communities that are specific to one particular industries that may be impacted. And so we need to find the resources and we need to find our willingness to actually announce some of these supports so that workers know that government has their back.
The organization says Canada should consider export restrictions to the U.S. if tariffs are implemented. The CLC names oil and gas, minerals, electricity, and lumber exports. So if that were to happen, would that not cause more job uncertainty for Canadians working in those sectors?
We believe that you need to have all cards on the table. We are dealing with a bully in the U.S. president, and that means we need to absolutely look at every opportunity to fight back in a very strong and decisive way. That means counter tariffs, and that also means potentially limiting or cutting off the supply to oil, gas, minerals, and all of those things that you've mentioned. Again, we need to make sure that we're playing with all cards on the table and that we can be decisive as well. We know that jobs on both sides of the border are going to be impacted by this race to provide billionaires with tax cuts. It's going to harm workers on both sides of the border. And if we do nothing, that still will not change the U.S. approach to what they're going to be doing in terms of the impact on workers.
A meeting between Prime Minister Trudeau and Canada's premiers also happened yesterday. You say you are waiting to hear a, quote, strong response that the government has a plan to protect workers. So what message exactly are you looking to hear from government?
The clock is ticking and the time is now. Workers are already feeling impacted. We are already hearing of layoffs and we are already hearing of lack of investments in workplaces that had been previously announced because of the uncertainty. And so workers need to know that government has a plan and that they have their backs, and we need to know what the solutions are now.
And that's the thing, right? Because when I think about this White House official telling CTV News that tariffs are moving forward, as Trump has said, but added, that could change depending on ongoing negotiations. It's just a lot of question marks and uncertainty. So how is that affecting workers?
The uncertainty is just as impactful as the actual announcement of tariffs. We are already seeing that chilling effect. We are already having workers tell us that they're thinking about selling their homes at this early stage in some of the smaller communities that are industry-specific communities. And so, the time to act is now. It's not to sit back and wait. We appreciate that things are in flux, and every single day and every single tweet that comes out of the White House changes a course of direction. But we need to be ready. And so being ready means having plans in place so that workers can be reliant on the fact that government has their back.
Bea Bruss, President of the Canadian Labour Congress, we appreciate your time.
Thank you.
If you like that video, make sure to subscribe to the Your Morning YouTube feed, where you can find all kinds of new content posted every weekday morning.